For 70 years, the European Union and the project of European unification has been of vital strategic interest to the United States. That's not all of a sudden going to change. I think these strategic interests, these long and deep relationships we've had with the United States, they are not going to change suddenly. I'm quite sure that once, if you also look at the hearings in Congress of people who are going to fill responsible positions in the Trump administration, they all commit to NATO. They're very strong about NATO. They are very realistic about the relationship with Russia, and they're also very realistic about the need to have a strong relationship with Europe. The fact that we share fundamental values between these two societies, that's not going to change.
Do you think you share the same values now than you did, a few months ago?
Well, I'm not talking just about politicians, but if you look at what people deem important in our societies, liberty, the possibility for self-development, the possibility to be able to be a success in society, the possibility to have access to education on the basis of your talents, the need to take care of people who are in difficult situations.
So this is stuff that every country, every country says it believes in.
But I think, if you look, especially the issue of freedom is not perceived in the same way across the world. And we do have a lot in common with the Americans if you look at freedom. And I think this is not going to change with the new administration.
Right, okay. But, one of the things that Donald Trump has said is that he believes that others will leave. Others will leave the European Union.
Well, what we've seen since the Brexit vote is 27 member states coming together and being very clear about the fact that they want to find common issues to fight for. And I think, paradoxically, you've seen EU countries moving closer together rather than being apart since the Brexit vote. So I have not seen one member state expressing the wish to follow the British example. I've rather even seen some of the politicians who are very critical of the EU no longer advocating their country leaving the EU, but they will say, we don't want to be in the euro, we're critical of this and that. But this call for leaving the European Union has not increased. It's rather diminished since the Brexit vote.
OK, and talking of Brexit, what was your reaction to Theresa May's speech yesterday?
Well, first of all, I think she confirmed in her speech what one could have already seen on the basis of her political declarations before.
So it wasn't a surprise that
in terms of the content of the speech, I wasn't surprised at all. It's a confirmation we thought would be coming. In terms of the tone of the speech, I was surprised that she was very positive about how she would see a future relationship with the EU and that she wants the EU to be a success. Without the UK, but still she wants it to be a success. I mean, the positive tone is, I think, would be a good start for our negotiations. But at the end of the day, we simply have to wait for the notification of Article 50 and what that notification will entail, and then we can start negotiating.
But there were some specifics, and the single market, a lot of people in Europe and in the UK thought the UK would stay in the single market, even if it left the EU. That is a big deal, isn't it, for her to say that, to signal that we would leave the single market?
But she's been saying for quite some time that the UK would not accept the European judiciary, that the UK would not accept the freedom of movement. Well, if that is your line, then of course the internal market becomes a very difficult proposition, if not impossible proposition.
Because those things are incompatible.
Yes, the fact
and they're
that
still incompatible.
Well,
now, yesterday, tomorrow.
The freedom of movement, the four freedoms of the EU, are an essential part of our legal obligations. They're not just a political agreement. They form part and parcel of the treaty. So if you don't want that, that means that you take a step away from the treaty, including the internal market. So in that sense, I felt her speech yesterday as a confirmation of something we were expecting.
And finally, just quickly, are you sanguine about the economic implications for Europe and for the UK of leaving the single market?
Well, I think we all have a responsibility on both sides of the Channel to make sure that we do as little harm as possible to our economies. I think that is really a responsibility we have vis-à-vis our citizens and our businesses. I mean, in this day and age, you need to be very careful to make sure that your economy is in a good position to grasp global opportunities. But it's in no way easy. So we should do the best we can to make sure that on both sides of the channel, we come out of this with very little harm to the economy.
Is it harmful to leave the single market?
We'll have to wait and see. I strongly believe in the single market. I do believe that Europe, as an actor on the global scale, needs a single market to be strong enough to also in the future grasp the opportunities that this industrial revolution offers. And I believe that we need to be strong, and 500 million are stronger than a more limited number.